Well, hello everyone. Today I'm actually joined by a dear friend of mine, Heather Cook, who is an HR director and a dear friend of mine. And we decided to do this swap. So, guess what? I don't even need to intro right now. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Heather. I'm going to let you take over.
you say yes. Usually Candice is the one interviewing others, but today the tables have turned and it's my chance to interview her. Like she said, we first met online about 8 years ago, and since then I've been lucky enough to witness the beautiful way which she shows up in the world. Today we're diving into her practices and especially what she calls grounded spirituality. So I can't wait for you all to hear about this. So Candice, how did you come to develop your approach to grounded spirituality?
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, for doing this with me. And it's been really incredible to have good friends that have really supported the journey as I developed all of my practice, really. It's hard to believe that I'm stepping into year 4 soon, and that's just mind blowing. And that leads me to answer your question is that when I very first got started, I was very much myself escaping. And I recognized early on that most people come to spiritual practices in order to escape this embodiment, whether they've had traumatic experiences or just a lot of life going on. It's really it comes down to not feeling safe within the body. And so a lot of what I do is I help people ground back in and start to feel safe, feel secure, and really start to work through those layers of experience so that when they do decide to develop their spiritual practice, it's not running from their life, it's actually walking with. And what I've seen is people really gravitate to this because they are tired of running. They just don't necessarily recognize that that's what they've been doing. And so through this practice, it's the ability to remember, first of all, that while life can be so chaotic sometimes, like we know that we're feeling this, and there's no doubt at all. We still are given a gift to be here, and it takes really working on that internal layer of self to truly feel worthy to be here. And I know that I experienced that myself, where it took me really up until the last like 5 years to really value who I am as a person. And once I started having that internal alignment, all the rest of the work started getting so much easier. And I wasn't running away from the things that were really heavy and hard to work through. I'm more now, I'd say I'm in a state where I'm a little bit more inquisitive, but that's like the goal of spiritual work is to help you work through the harder parts so that all the rest of this work gets to be more fun and you get to actually, I don't know, get excited to do the other parts of the work.
Yeah, grounded spirituality is such a powerful phrase. Um, can you go a little bit more into what that means to you and how it kind of differs from traditional spirituality?
Yeah, so with most spiritual practices, we tend to look at it and it's more of a perception, I would say, because most of the time I work with clients who are brand new to this work. So they've either never experienced energy work or maybe they've had it a handful of times, but nothing at the depth and level that I walk clients through. In that, in the beginning, we're finding the root cause. We want to know where are these cycles and patterns originating, which is a little bit different from typical sessions because sometimes people go into the session and they're just receiving the energy work. They're not actually getting the coaching aspect of what this work can do. And what I found is that when I help clients open their eyes and truly see where is this originating, because most of the time it is the cycles and patterns that started very early on in our life. Sometimes they're suppressed memories, sometimes they're really traumatic events, and we're very cautious with all of this work. And it becomes an empowering catalyst for them to be able to move through this in a way that is so much more supportive of their life. Because you can go in and have energy sessions and kind of treat it like a massage. I'll just give it that way, where you're moving the energy, but you're not making the connection point. And so it's almost like you repeat the patterns and cycles because it does come back down to how our brain operates as well. And sometimes it takes that activation to be able to truly see things the way that they are. and make the conscious choice to have something different in its place. And so I would say that while, yes, we have all of the rituals and the starting points of the practice, meaning I connect in with someone's higher self, and I'm really asking for divine wisdom to flow through me to help support them in this session. We're then working through the energetic layers as well. And we do that coaching aspect first, because I guess I figured this out the other day. I was the kid who really liked to connect the dots. And so it makes sense that I'm constantly like connecting the dots, because what I have found is that most of the time, these patterns and cycles are repeating in various areas of our life. And while they may present differently, like you're not going to have the same person. Well, sometimes you'll work with your spouse, but not always. And so you might have like the same energy pattern of a spouse that you did with a parent, that you do with your boss, that you do now with your children. And so once we kind of figure out what the underlying cause is, we can then go in and help people really shift the energy so that they have a choice in how they're actually showing up in their life.
Right. I think you did a good job of explaining how spiritual work isn't escaping, it's kind of reframing.
Right.
And working through those transitions instead of avoiding them.
Yeah.
So many of us go through some, and you touched on it a little bit, identity shifts, whether it's a career change, ending a relationship, becoming a parent, or even rediscovering ourselves later in life, like I feel like we have. What's the first step you encourage people to take when they feel like, I don't know who I am anymore?
Yeah, so I think that, and women really, really go through this in our late 30s, early 40s, into our 50s. I'm not there yet, so I can't speak to the 50s, but I can say that, and men go through this too. It all presents the same way. And we go through this because, and what I believe is that we've lived our entire life and our foundations are all built on these external factors. So whether that's validation, support, feeling love, being accepted is at the core of our human desire for, I don't know where it originated, but it is something that really drives us. And an interesting connection in that I'll make real quick is that the other day I was actually on a panel where we were talking about traumatic experiences. And every single woman on this panel, their traumatic experience on the deeper layer was because of their need to be accepted as they were. One person was going through infertility issues and felt like a failure as a woman because she couldn't have children. The other had bulimia in her early childhood and couldn't understand why she wasn't accepted as she was. Another person had bullying from being disabled. So every single one of them had these external factors really dictating how they felt secure in their life, in themselves. And that's part of why when we hit a certain age, or if we are in a certain, I would say, internal awakening moment, it's really easy to go through an identity shift because we're actually questioning it to begin with. Most of us, you think about it, like we're told from early on, make the good grades, be a good kid, follow the rules. And so a lot of it gets stifled in the early childhood days. And it's not that our parents were wrong for trying to keep us alive, and productive.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, we're just now starting to learn what supporting a child looks like going forward. And so many of us awaken to this moment where we're like, we can have everything in life going well. We can have everything going crappy. Both ends of that spectrum present the same on an energy level because it's the same vibration of disconnection and not feeling in alignment with what is going on in their life. So some of the first things that I guide people through is really to start seeing themselves. And a lot of this is done through the first layer of energy work. So that first session is usually helping kind of open the body up, open the energy centers so that you can actually start to awaken to what it is that you desire out of life. What are your values? What is it that you actually want to see as a vision versus what you've continued to live your life for. And so a lot of it's just the beginning of just being receptive to see things in a different way. And then it's just about really naming it. So understanding that labels are a thing and we've grown up with all of them. We have a million of them. We like to label everything. I mean, that's why the label maker was invented.
I love the label maker.
And most of us do, because it helps us organize things, right? It's a brain thing. It helps us organize things. And it's great and serves a purpose. And it can be at our detriment, because even when you're dealing with childhood connections, so like parentals and or family members that have done harm, it is really hard when you have this label and perception of who someone is in our life. And we do that same thing for ourselves. And what that does is it creates these expectations that are not always in alignment for that person's capacity. So we might have a parent who just did the best that they could. I'm not saying we ever condone behavior, so please never mistake that. But they did the best they could, but because they have the label mom or dad, we grow a sense of lack, and in almost like that depression can start because of what society has told us that relationship should look like.
Yeah.
So,
that makes sense, which kind of leads me into the next question. What are some common blocks you see when people are trying to step into a new version of themselves? And also, following on to that, how does tuning into our energetic state help us navigate those big life changes?
Okay, so first question, hang on. I was listening and then I got distracted because you asked the second one. So
Common blocks.
Yeah, common blocks. The common blocks that I see are the ability to have firm foundation. So I look at everything as the energy center, so the chakra system. And as we're going through each one, you'll see me like point all the time. So I'm going to try to explain why that is. But as we understand where our energy is and where it's really the foundational elements are, we start to recognize where those blocks in our life become. So early development are in the lower three. So that's your root, sacral, and solar. That's your security, your safety, the way that you connect in with your environment, your community, what you think about the world. That's also then your creativity, your passion, your desire, your purpose, and then your autonomy in life. So what you believe about yourself and the power that you hold, not from an egoic state of I am powerful, but I am powerful in who I am. And so I see a lot of blocks in the lower three because a lot of that development is kind of stifled. You're not necessarily supported in the actualization of yourself. And so what that also does is it continues up the system. So the heart space is our connection with others, our connection with ourselves, how we love ourselves, how we, hold compassion and understanding, both directions. Then we have communication issues. So how do I speak my truth if I don't know it? How do I speak my truth if I don't feel it? And then you get up to the third eye where that's all vision. And it's like, I can't see myself as who I want to be because I don't know myself as who I am. And I can't see it forward. I can't see the vision into being, which then comes into your conscious connection, which is I am supported through all of this. And so I see often people come in with a lack of vision or clarity. And again, it's all because they don't know who they are. And so you can see where, and you can, to like secondary, to answer your second question, you can see how connecting in with your energy really affects how you show up in your life. It's not only what you're attracting. Everybody's always talking about manifestation and attracting. And yeah, sure, we are doing that. We are attracting these different experiences in. But when we look at it at that root cause level, we can then see and understand why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So let's shift into, I know you're a big fitness person as well. And so you've mentioned before that the way we look at fitness and wellness could use a shift. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so let's see, I got my first big girl job, I always say, because I waited tables forever. And I still did that while having this big girl job because, like, let's be real, it was a long time ago. Anyway, so as a gym manager, and it started in as my, grew up in the 90s, primarily 80s kid. And, back then everything was really well, I don't know that this has changed, but everything has been focused on the physical body as an attribute of who we are. So I am defined by my outer appearance instead of by my inner being. And being somebody who was overweight as a child, like I was always the personality anyway. So definitely had to do a lot of work there. But the bigger thing is that we've been so conditioned to look at fitness as the way in which to punish our body, the way in which to achieve a smaller body, a more defined body, all these different aesthetics. And not even just as we grow into our aging wisdom, our bodies really require different support. And so, if we are to look at health and wellness as a holistic approach, in that energy is expended in so many ways, stress is placed on the body in various levels of those degrees. And exercise is one form of stress. It's a good one, but it can still be a bad one if you're not in alignment. If you're doing, let's say you're overworking and stressed out, and then you go to the gym and you do a HIIT class, your cortisol is like up here, and you're wondering why you crash at 1 o'clock. So
Yeah.
if we look at it, right, as if we look at it from the perspective of what is this movement doing for my body? What is this food doing for my body? Because everything is energy. Everything is filtering through us and either supporting our higher well-being or depleting our energy. And so it takes some work. I'm not perfect at it. I'm a woman. I've got the things, but it's not about the perfection of, it's just about the acknowledgement and getting started with seeing it in a different way.
Right. I think how can people start to view their energy as a resource? I think that's kind of what you were leading towards, the same way you might think of time or money.
Oh my gosh. So it is our biggest resource because we can't enjoy our life if we are feeling so depleted. And one of the things that we often forget about is the whole flow thing. So, flow is this state of being where you could just be in something for hours and hours on end. And one component of that is the rest period. And so when we don't give our bodies recalibration time, we're actually causing ourselves to show up irritated, angry, probably hangry. If you're not drinking your water, like I'm a work in progress. But we end up missing how beautiful life can be because we're physically not feeling well. Energy, when we're aligned, we can make those decisions and we don't feel bad if we have to say no to something. We don't feel bad. And you hear how often we say, I feel bad, even just having that awareness and attunement, or I'm tired or I'm exhausted, like all the things. I'm still catching myself. It just continues to resonate that energy within us. And if instead we're like, yeah, I'm choosing to honor my body right now because I am starting to feel a little tired and I want to be proactive in this, then we don't have to necessarily place upon us an expectation to show up anyway. Now, this is not to confuse with accountability on something when you say you want to show up. So let's like be real there.
Right.
But like we can always excuse our way out of anything. But when you genuinely are in alignment, then you can understand what it is that your body needs when you need it. And so that's kind of how I look at things.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people see fitness as just physical. And so I know that
Mhm.
you can help people integrate the emotional, mental, and spiritual health into that picture. Is there anything else you wanted to add about that?
I think the biggest thing is I have a really new great resource, Rod Stanley, who was introduced to me by Aaron Hurley. Like I'm always like connected with really great humans. finding a personal trainer or somebody who can literally help you understand where your body is. Like, I can help you on the emotional connection. Like, why is it that you're treating your body bad? Why is it that you're showing up in the gym and wanting to, be something you're not? It's one thing to aspire to be healthy, and it's another thing to be comparing yourself and making yourself fit into a mold. Again, it's all the same energy as when we were children. We're trying to fit into the mold. But finding somebody who can truly listen to you and customize what it is that your body needs in this season. Because a lot of times when you're getting started, it is about the awareness and the clarity so that you can take action going forward. And part of that is that self-discovery. Where is my body actually doing? You're like, do I need to be doing a HIIT workout? Do I need to be running? Do I not need to? But like, what's going to support my system as a whole? And so that would be one of the things that I say is, don't be afraid to invest where it makes sense. Like, I'm really big on this mantra this year that if I invest and it's in alignment for my highest good and the highest good of all, it always comes back to me. And that's not something I used to believe. I did not know that we could invest in things and it bring back that. And sometimes it looks different, right? Like, it's not always just financial that comes back. Like, people think that your wealth and abundance can't be in the form of a gift or the form of a great new connection that leads to a new opportunity. So try not to limit that there. But when you give yourself, to just go back, when you give yourself the opportunity to invest where it makes sense, then you will see the shift within your entire being to live a healthier life, feel more aligned, and actually not dread going to the gym, even if you don't want to go always. Okay. Like, I still have mornings where I'm like, okay, I said I want to do this and I'm going to do it.
Totally agree. So if someone watching this feels stuck in transition right now, what's one simple practice they could try today to start moving forward?
So one of the hardest things for us to do in the beginning is actually stillness and paying attention to our words. So I would say between the two of those things, I'm not saying that you need to go live on a mountain and meditate for 12 days. I'm saying that you can start by paying attention to what are you saying on automatic? Like, are you tending to say, I'm so tired, I'm so angry, I am this or that? And what is it that you are saying when other people are talking with you? One of the greatest gifts I ever was given was some time that I spent at a meditation retreat. It's an ashram in Northern California. Try doing that transition. I've been saying this, like, it's so, telling you, working on it. But anyways, they spent the morning in silence. That was one of the first things. And then they gave you the chance that if you want to practice a day of stillness, a day of silence, you could, and you could put a marker on you so that people would respect that or not think that you're just blowing them off. But what it did was it opened my awareness to my go-tos. Like, as I'm in conversation, am I actually listening or am I waiting to respond? Am I about to say something in agreement, and it's negative towards myself? Like, all, and then I started hearing, and that's really when I started hearing how negative everyone talks about themselves. So that's where I would start, is that, like, that moment of just paying attention to your automatic go-to phrases and, maybe even journal them out. It takes time. You got to take time to do this stuff. And give yourself a moment of, like, break from the day. Like, I think that meditation in the beginning can be in the form of movement. So going for a walk, but just maybe not having the headphones in, paying attention to the environment, because if we baby step our way into these things, then we start to desire the actual stillness itself.
Yes, I think one of the, because life happens constantly every day. There's always something that's going on that you're like, what the heck, man? So one of the things I've been doing really recently is everything's always working out for me. Like, if something happens and it's not exactly what I had planned for the day, it's okay. Everything is always working out for me.
Right. Well, and it's a behavior change and a mindset shift and a practice. Like, if you didn't ever get started, it'd be really challenging to believe that. And that's the thing is, like, in the beginning, you might not fully resonate with it. You might be like, it all works out, and I'm not sure how it's going to work. Like,
Right. Yep.
but like honor that and say, okay, but why can't it? And
Yeah.
how do I just show up with that intention that it will work out and just fully begin to lean in and resonate with that belief? And it's a practice, again, that we show up for each and every day. I think we are so quick to think like, oh, I got to be like right there. It's not really true. Just give yourself
Right.
time.
Yeah. And so you did mention small mind shifts. Are there any that you can specifically think of that can help someone stop resisting change and start embracing it more?
So I think the biggest thing is being able to see it for what it is. When we go through change, change requires so much from us. And I say this often because it is something new. It's both new for our brain, it's both new for our energy, and it's unpredictable. And so we usually stay in these same patterns of like either self sabotage, where we never really move forward because we're like, I'm just going to stay here. Or we feel so defeated when it doesn't look a certain way. So a couple of key components that I would say is giving yourself the time and space for things to actualize, for things to come together, and recognize where you're starting. And what I always look at everything as outcomes and intentions. So what's my outcome? What's the intention? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when you can start to truly take a look at things for as they are without judgment, that's when you can start to ask the deeper questions of where did this originate? And it really does just take being really intentional with asking those questions.
Yeah. So, what's the one thing you wish everybody understood about the connection between body, mind, and spirit?
Mm, that that it's not so complicated. Like,
Yeah.
I think, and that you don't have to be a guru of some kind to access the wisdom that is within us and that is around us. And I think it can be really simplified. I think that while there are really beautiful rituals and ceremonies that we can uphold, there are still very simple practices, such as tuning in, such as slowing down. Meditation and prayer are very closely related in my world, in that we are attuning to our higher self. We're tuning to our higher power, and we're allowing ourselves that stillness. And so I would say that, we don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to stage your entire house. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, you can. You don't have to go buy every single crystal on the market. You can, but you don't have to. And you can actually just get started very simply by allowing yourself to kind of like melt into or crumble into what it means to try to find yourself. And that can be the scariest part, is a lot of people don't like who they are. And so if we can start to really see ourselves beyond what we don't like, then we can actually start to come back to these practices much easier.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I have really enjoyed getting to be the one to ask you questions today. I feel like we just touched the surface of all the great things that you're doing. So, my last question is what's the message you hope people take away from today?
I hope that people take away the message that you matter, that it's not too late to do something new, to shift out of whatever it is that you're going through, and to just remember how divine you are. Like, we are all a part of this bigger divine construct that we can't even necessarily explain. Do we need to? Not necessarily. And that you have divine purpose. It's just about remembering that and coming back to that remembrance.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. I have enjoyed our conversation as well. Heather is going to be at our retreat. She's co-hosting with me, and she is going to be teaching us all the things about mandalas and the spiritual connection behind it. So I'm really excited. Again, it's so funny. We met 8 years ago on Instagram. We can't even remember how. We just did
I
that.
know, we were just talking about it.
Yeah. So, but that's the power of like getting to know people through the platforms instead of it always being an agenda. So, but anyways, but thank you everyone who attended today. And thank you, Heather, for being a part of the conversation. And